queria agradecer muito o convite. A Alice me pediu especialmente aqui para tentar contextualizar um pouco essa discussão para o Brasil e, enfim, trazer algumas reflexões que a gente tem feito a respeito desses conceitos, especialmente o Open Badges. Eu estava conversando com o Nate, a gente vem estudando. Eu já estudo um pouco esse conceito já faz uns 2 anos, porque me parece que aponta para algumas necessidades que a gente tem do ponto de vista do desenvolvimento de um sistema de avaliação que dê conta desse panorama da educação no século XXI, que já começa a mostrar que a linearidade do processo educativo, né, que é necessariamente, cujo sucesso necessariamente está indicado pelo número de diplomas que uma pessoa tem, a gente começa a perceber que isso já não dá conta, né? E o conjunto de interações a que uma pessoa está exposta, o conjunto de conexões a que essa pessoa está ativamente envolvida, tem muito a ver com a capacidade que as pessoas têm de desenvolver coisas, de influenciar pensamentos, enfim, de participar da sociedade contemporânea. Trazendo um pouco para o Brasil, e aí eu cheguei no Connected Learning, que é essa linha de pesquisa que fundamenta os badges da Universidade da Califórnia, que justamente faz como é que as pessoas aprendem, como é que as pessoas aprendem no mundo hoje, e como é que a gente pode traduzir essas formas de aprendizado que são via conexões, interações, em processos educativos e em processos de avaliação, né? Então, acho que é muito interessante para nós o que eles estão estudando. No Brasil, a gente tem um desafio enorme, eu queria trazer rapidamente. O desafio é que são 50 milhões de estudantes, 2 milhões de professores e 200 mil escolas. O Brasil é um país continental, um país onde soluções homogeneizantes não têm muito sucesso, porque é um país de uma diversidade extraordinária, não tem sucesso para nenhum objetivo, mesmo para quem acha que respostas únicas podem funcionar. Mesmo se a gente tiver um pensamento muito autoritário, mesmo assim no Brasil não funciona. Ainda mais para quem tem uma visão mais progressista e mais, enfim, de um papel da educação na linha da emancipação, menos ainda. Quer dizer, se a gente se ativer a soluções generalizantes, num país como o Brasil é muito complexo. E o Brasil atravessou e superou há muito recentemente uma questão inicial e basilar, que é a questão do acesso à escola. A gente, até 20 anos atrás, a gente não tinha ainda garantido o acesso. Então, foi um esforço extraordinário que o Brasil fez para universalizar o acesso de todos na escola. Hoje a gente está perto dos 97%, 98%, que é bastante bom, mas ainda temos grandes questões no segundo segmento, no Fundamental 2 e no ensino médio. A gente tem muita evasão escolar, né? Isso faz com que a gente tenha que pensar muito concretamente hoje na questão da qualidade. Que tipo de escola é essa que a gente está ofertando, que tem gerado a fuga dos nossos adolescentes e dos nossos jovens e que não tem demonstrado, não tem trazido resultados nem para o básico 1, nem para aquilo que é a coisa mais básica da escola, nem para essa expectativa a escola brasileira hoje tem respondido, que dirá para uma escola para o século XXI. Uma escola que, então, o Brasil tem esse desafio duplo que é muito complexo, que é dar conta de um modelo ou dar conta da qualidade já num século que nos exige rupturas muito grandes do ponto de vista dos modelos que a gente de pensamento, de organização social. A gente tem trabalhado com o conceito de educação integral no Aprendiz, e junto com uma série de parceiros de organizações e de governos também, entendendo que a educação integral ela justamente pode contribuir nessa reflexão acerca da qualidade, por 2 caminhos. Uma, em relação à questão do tempo. Nesse processo todo de garantia de acesso, o Brasil acabou constituindo aí uma média de tempo de 4 horas e meia, mais ou menos, a jornada escolar, o que é insuficiente. Está comprovado que é insuficiente. Mas, para além disso, o Brasil, a escola, e a escola em geral, ela é uma escola muito voltada para a transmissão de informação, uma escola muito voltada para o desenvolvimento intelectual, né, para uma aprendizagem disciplinar, de disciplinas desarticuladas. Então, há um desafio enorme da gente pensar nesses novos modelos, ou na escola, também a partir de uma lógica que atenda não só ao desenvolvimento intelectual, mas também ao desenvolvimento social, ao desenvolvimento emocional, ao desenvolvimento simbólico, não só porque isso é fundamental, pensar numa formação integral como resultante de um processo educativo de fato, mas porque também para as estruturas cognitivas é fundamental que as demais variáveis em dimensões estejam atendidas, né? Então, a gente tem tentado pensar nisso, como é que a gente pode desenvolver perspectivas e possibilidades que garantam o desenvolvimento integral, uma perspectiva de formação integral para esse sujeito, que é um sujeito em todas as suas dimensões, não só um aprendiz de informações ou conteúdos escolares, curriculares, tradicionais. E aí, o que é fundamental, e aí eu queria conectar aqui e já fazer a pergunta para vocês, que a ideia de ser debatedora, não palestrante, é que a escola sozinha, na nossa visão, ela não dá conta dessa tarefa da formação integral. Ela não dá conta porque o modelo dela ainda precisa ser revisto, mas ela também não dá conta, ou melhor, existe um conjunto de interações e possibilidades nos territórios e nas cidades, que é o que o City of Learning mostra também. Há um conjunto de oportunidades educativas e de possíveis interações colocadas no contexto das escolas e nas cidades que pode permitir uma ampliação e um aprofundamento do processo de aprendizagem e de desenvolvimento. A gente viveu muito isso no desenvolvimento do bairro Escola, em que a gente percebia que aquilo que as crianças e os adolescentes traziam, o bairro Escola foi uma experiência que a gente fez lá pelo Aprendiz, as questões que as crianças traziam exigiam duas coisas. Um trabalho em rede, escola e os equipamentos do sistema de garantia de direitos, para que a gente pudesse, sistema de saúde, assistência social, enfim, para que a gente pudesse dar conta dos desafios, mas também de um conjunto de interações que estavam ali disponíveis no bairro, o cinema, o teatro, a aula de circo, a aula de música, que estavam disponíveis na cidade e que não chegavam para essas crianças porque elas não conheciam, suas famílias não conheciam e tampouco a escola trabalhava em rede com essas outras oportunidades. Então, eu acho que é isso que a educação integral hoje, nacionalmente, tem tentado trazer. Como é que a gente amplia e diversifica o conjunto de interações a que a gente disponibiliza e coloca a serviço da formação dos sujeitos, agentes, diferentes recursos, diferentes espaços, para que esse processo de formação e desenvolvimento se aprofunde e se dê em maior consonância com o que o século XXI está exigindo. Agora, o grande desafio é como é que mede isso? Não é? Porque os sistemas de avaliação, a começar pelas avaliações externas em larga escala, não chegam nem perto do que esse conjunto de experiências oferece e oferta do ponto de vista da aprendizagem. Mas não só isso, os mecanismos mais comuns que a escola tem à sua disposição, mesmo as organizações, não dão conta. Então, acho que o grande desafio é pensar, sim, essa questão da aprendizagem Connected Learning, né, em conexão, porque eu acho que esse é um importante referencial para a gente pensar a aprendizagem hoje, mas pensar, sim, em novas formas de certificar e de avaliar essas aprendizagens. E aí eu acho muito bonito, acho que você não disse isso, mas um horizonte que se coloca de que no futuro, mais do que um currículo vitae, que a gente, né, o vitae que a gente mostra, com todos os nossos diplomas, pós-graduação, a gente vai ter um portfólio de experiências, um portfólio de aprendizagens, de experiências e de conexões, e que isso vai mostrar muito mais para o mundo quem a gente é e o que a gente pode oferecer do que aquele nosso currículo de hoje em dia. Então, eu acho que é isso que os badges trazem como referência. E aí a minha pergunta, vou já lançar uma pergunta, quais são os desafios hoje que uma plataforma como essa, ou na compreensão de um sistema como esse de badges? Queria te perguntar isso, quais desafios vocês têm enfrentado na compreensão desse conceito? E eu queria te perguntar, quando me chamou a atenção, quando você, em toda essa reflexão que eu tentei trazer aqui rapidinho, há uma profunda crítica ao modelo escolar, hierarquizado, Vamos nos ater aí à questão da hierarquia. E você colocou aqui uma das questões avaliadas e que vão aí constituir uma predição para o futuro, para a perspectiva de futuro, é a questão do comportamento. E aí você traz ir para a sala do diretor, etc. Eu queria saber se, por exemplo, ir muitas vezes à sala do diretor não pode ser um indicativo de sucesso. E como é que vocês veem isso, de sucesso futuro? Não pode predizer sucesso ao invés de fracasso. Então, eu queria entender um pouco como é que vocês veem essas outras possibilidades. Tá bem?
I'll take that first. So when you talk about integral education, I think you're right to say that the question is not how can schools offer an integral education. The question really is how should schools participate in a network that can offer an integral education. And I think it's definitely right to think that we're not trying to produce learners that can just go right through the system as prescribed, right through one person's learning pathway. We want to produce learners who are literate to many learning pathways, who know how to discover the opportunities that are available to them. And then as a city or as a community, we need to produce the kind of resources that help them discover those opportunities. And I think that, with organizations who are participating in the Badge Alliance, I think we're seeing the beginnings of the type of network that can build those experiences. And part of that is building the right kind of software so that when a student goes and, has a record of their learning, that they see some analytics on what are some other opportunities that they can participate with. And also, I think that we need to bring in all this kinds of new data that we're getting from different types of assessment and be able to make the right kind of learning claims about it. So it definitely is a very interesting question that I'll hand to you, Kim, on what is the learning claim that we can get from those students' behavior. We have certain types of data inputs. What are those claims we can make about it, and how does that help us form a picture of a learner who knows how to participate or needs to learn more about how to participate in a connected learning network?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So when I think about integral and this idea of these communities all working together, it is exactly where our research started, which is looking at the factors that go beyond academics that matter for an outcome like college readiness. Now, we don't need to choose college readiness as the outcome. We could do things like high school graduation or etc. But what we did was look beyond academics. And one of the statistics I did not share with you is the predictive element of those 6 factors. And so when we measured college readiness, which was our outcome, as the entrance examinations in the United States to college, which was ACT and SAT, and a student's cumulative grade point average in high school. So that's what we used as our outcome. And when we predicted it from 8th grade, we found that 25% of the predictability or of the variance was accounted for by achievement. No shock there, right? But what was really interesting is 22% of it was about motivation and 20% was of behavior. So if you put motivation and behavior together, they collectively are more predictive than academics for an academic outcome. And so what I think that illustrates is that the importance of the connectedness, the participation of our teachers and our students and our parents. And so one of the factors was parent engagement and family circumstances. Certainly we know the research on the importance of parent engagement. And so when we think about behavior in particular, you asked me about that. Could going to the office actually be a success sign as opposed to a failure sign? Well, our data would illustrate that with the outcome of college readiness and college success, that going to the office is actually not good for reaching those goals. It does not predict your pathway towards those goals. Now, if we wanted to take a different outcome, maybe innovation or disruption, maybe that variable would then predict it a little differently. But where we came from, Natacha, was really from a database decision. How do our data speak? The data told us that things like not doing your homework, things like going to the office and being suspended, then made you less prepared for those academic outcomes.
De pessoas distintas aqui, uma pergunta que acho que vale para os dois. Como é que a gente faz para evitar, minimizar fraude, tanto na emissão de badges quanto na conquista de badges, ou então nos próprios, quer dizer, no próprio sistema que a Kim mostrou, você tem como fraudar. Se você tiver má intenção, você tem como fraudar e ter um resultado que não é válido. Como é que vocês veem isso?
these are not new questions to, when you start bringing in technology. These are the same questions that we had to deal with when all the records were paper, and a student who, brings a note home to their parents to sign and then signs it themselves and brings it back saying, yeah, my parents signed my report card and they know. When you have digital badges, students are going to try and pull the same tricks. And that's the importance of being able to build the tools that understand the credentials as their primary focus, to build in the verification technology that, yes, this badge is it's currently valid, it was issued by the organization you expect, and it belongs to the individual you expect. And then you have to do a little bit more of personal verification as well in determining, okay, the email address or identifier that the badge was issued to, is that really the student here? And that's a level of verification that depends on a consumer's relationship with a particular student. But I think the approach that we have to take is not that the technology will solve all the problems, but we just need to develop our literacy about what the different types of cheating or fraud issues that there will be with the digital technologies, and then know how to learn and build the tools that we need to answer those questions that we're going to develop.
And related to fraud, certainly we've seen lots of examples of fraud in assessment. In these stop and test situations, students take test questions, they share them, they publish them, and unfortunately, as you've seen in the United States, quite a bit of fraud, even on adults' side, giving students answers, bubbling in the wrong answers. In fact, there was one school in the United States that had pizza parties, and they would change students' answers on the standardized tests to then make them higher scores. And so certainly there was fraud there. And so the question is, what about this next generation? What about this assessment renaissance that I'm talking about? Well, one of the key facts, and I agree with what Nate says, there are always going to be the opportunities for fraud, but one of the things, as you listen to me, is to bring multiple sources of data together from multiple people. And so when you start bringing all that data together, it becomes increasingly difficult to change those data because they're coming from all these sources. In addition, the data are constantly accumulating in these systems so that as students then learn more, we update the information about the students using Bayesian statistics. And so I think the idea of sort of fraud being entered is lessened. It's never gone, but I would recommend for all of us to think about our own students to actually come in and try to beat our systems. Like, we should bring them in and say, come on in, look at this system. How would you game the system? How would you introduce fraud into this system? Because our students are probably the most intelligent and bright about ways to sort of check and counter-check the work that we do.
Yeah, in some ways you build trust by building lots of security around your systems, and that's one way to start. Is you could lock down your systems and really protect them against all sorts of tampering. You could also start from a place of trust and learning your students' journeys, figuring out where they have come from and where they're going, and helping them find the opportunities that are motivating for them to participate in meaningful ways where they're not incentivized to introduce fraud into the system. And you sort of have to have both sides of the coin. I think it's important to recognize that preventing fraud with digital badges is not only about it's not a fight against students. It is also a journey that you take with students.
Também uma pergunta para os dois. Como que você, Nate, considera que deve ser a formação do professor para utilizar badges na avaliação dos alunos? E também, Kim, como é que a gente pode ajudar o professor a compreender todo esse rol de rich data que está disponível e ele usar isso como uma ferramenta a seu favor, visando a aprendizagem do aluno?
Yeah, so I think one of the great starting points for having teachers learn how to work with these new technologies and how to access this kind of data is to recognize that they are also students, and to take part in programs that use digital badges. And so I'm super excited that one of the most the most quickly advancing fields of digital open badging is in teacher professional development. And so there are lots of opportunities opening up for teachers to go and participate with their organizations that provide them training and use the technologies that then they can turn around and use with their students. So that's one quite exciting thing to consider.
Awesome. I'm going to first just talk a little bit about the challenge of teachers using big data. I'm talking about big data and how we might use it. We conducted a study. We took about 50 teachers, and we took their students' data, and we took the data and displayed it in 3 different ways, 3 different formats. And we asked the teachers to make very simple decisions, like of the students of data that you're looking at, which ones would you refer to extra help? Which ones would you assume are accelerating very rapidly? Simple teacher questions with their own student data. And we found that depending on the way we displayed the data, teachers came up with different answers. So we, first of all, are well aware that teachers understanding data is not a simple matter. So it is our responsibility to work with our teachers to build out the dashboards and the information in ways that they can understand it. And so in, for example, the Insight learning system that I illustrated to you, if you saw the video, you saw teachers sitting with us. And so we didn't develop this system. Researchers clearly didn't develop the system. We brought the teachers in and helped the teachers develop the system. So the teachers developed the training, the teachers developed the activities. We just brought them all together in the digital platform and conducted the research around it. And so when we think about the teacher participation, they need to be there from the absolute beginning. And when we designed that system, we started with the learning progression. That was first. Second was the teacher training. We didn't move into any of the student activities. We worked on the teacher training first. And so that when we do the teacher training, and right now I'll tell you the challenge. You asked, I think, the challenge, Alice. So one of the challenges is that the teacher training is over an hour. And it's a digital activity. It has videos in it. It has activities they can download, PDFs they can print, and it has activities that they demonstrate so that they understand if a student is at the learning level 1, what would they do to help move that student to level 2. And so we conducted that training. The problem is it's very rich training. It's digital. We get information on the teachers, but it takes a long time. So one of the challenges is how can we bring in teachers and, frankly, students to help us turn these types of activities into ones that are a little more efficient, a little more effective, and can then really reach out and be useful for the teachers. Just one more example, on the college readiness ones, what we're moving into next is bringing in teachers and asking them. We had a teacher focus group just about 3 weeks ago in Arizona, and we asked the teachers, what can we do with these data to make them useful for you? What would you do with these data? Does it help you to see data about students' college readiness? And so some of the teachers said things like, we would love to have this in a parent-teacher conference, but you'll have to redesign the display in a very different way. And so they started giving us feedback about how to redesign the feedback. And so that's how we're going to move about into that next stage, which is having our teachers show us, teach us, and illustrate to us what we need to do to make it useful and understandable.
Obrigada. Tem uma pergunta da Carla Zeltzer para Kim. Você tem exemplos de pesquisas de coletas de dados sobre competências para o século XXI, como, por exemplo, colaboração? Vocês têm trabalhado com isso também?
We actually have. We completed a study, and I have quite a few papers that we've published on it. And so I'll start back a minute. One of our researchers, Dr. Igal Rosen and Dr. Peter Fultz, helped develop the 2015 collaborative problem solving for PISA. They were the group that did the framework for PISA. And so after working on that framework, Dr. Rosen and some of our researchers created digital activities that assessed collaborative problem solving. And so what we did was we created these. Most of the activities, we had about 11 activities. We tested them in 7 countries, UK, Israel, Turkey, I can get all the countries for United States. And so we tested them with several hundred students, and we found some very interesting things. So one of the things is for the collaborative problem solving, we were testing a question about whether students working with students performed as well as students working with a digital agent. And so we would take students and have them paired up either with another student, and the students didn't know because they were working digitally, and then they had to solve a problem together. And we looked at things like how fast did they solve the problem, how well did they solve the problem, and then the students rated the activity and the experience for us. Now, this wasn't any sort of an assessment or anything. It was just an exploration for us into 21st century skills. And so we looked at creativity, we looked at collaboration, and we looked at problem solving. One of the interesting things in that study that I was very excited to see us moving forward on, is that we posed open-ended questions, and these were all targeted at that age 15, the PISA level. And what we found is we also offered students, we partnered with Google because it was a research study, and then had about 14 different sources that could help students make a recommendation. And so we asked a question like, your principal writes you an email, and this email asks you to make a recommendation about whether you should have organic milk in your cafeteria or not. And then you read a series of articles, some good, some moderate, some research-based, and some completely irrelevant, about milk, and organic milk and real milk and different types of milk. And then the students could digitally tag different parts of the sources and make their claim, their recommendation. They could state claims and they could pull evidence to support it. And then they ultimately wrote an email back to their principal making that recommendation. And one of the things that was not surprising but disappointing was that the students felt like they needed to use all the information, even if it was irrelevant. Like, we had some really bad sources in there. And so I think it's this history of, in the past, we as teachers had to give our students, I'm older, only good information because they could only afford paper on that good information. But today, information is rich, it's everywhere. And so students need to learn things, that critical analysis, like how do I evaluate which sources of information are actually good, which ones are research-based, and which ones are biased. And so those are some of the activities, and I would be happy to share the digital activities. They're available for you to look at and play around with. You can use them in your schools, as well as the papers that we published on those.
21st century skills are in very high demand, and credentials for 21st century skills are in high demand. Employers, when we've surveyed them in the Badge Alliance, this was one of the things that they asked for the very most. We want to know things about how well individuals can work with others, whether they display leadership traits, and these are notoriously hard to assess. So it's good to have people like Kim and her team working on improving the assessments, but that's one sort of side of the story. And the other would be to make sure that we have the ability to experiment with all sorts of new different ways to measure and to record success at 21st century skills. And so I think open badges are a really good fit for this because they can, any assessment technique can be used, and you can deliver, credentials that don't rely on the type of data that we were able to gather 20 years ago, but they can rely on personal testimony. You can record as individual evidence for badges, and all sorts of evidence that is not necessarily a performance that the student was asked to do on demand. And then we can also provide excellent evidence of those performance assessments that we do ask students to do. And through the developing endorsement work and all the learning pathways work I mentioned, we will be able to deliver credentials on a soft skill that by itself you might not trust the credential, but if an organization can reliably deliver good credentials around something like teamwork, and they can gather endorsements from well-trusted third parties, then that badge, based on their own assessment, can become much more trustworthy and much more valuable to someone like an employer.
Nate, pouco em cima desse último assunto, é possível conferir badges sem uma instituição por trás? E aí a pergunta que fica é se a própria instituição seria o real valor do badge.
The question, is the value of the badge related to the value of the institution that issues it? And can someone who is basically a no-name person deliver a badge with great value? And I think that yes, that person who doesn't necessarily have the weight of like a name like Harvard University behind them, I think a person can still deliver a very valuable badge, especially in an area of like soft skills. Because for example, if I worked with a teammate, you saw one of the badge examples I had was a participation badge that I issued for research partners on the Design Principles documentation project with me. And I felt that was, very exciting work. That was great to, be involved with all of them on it. And I wrote a quick little paragraph about each of my fellow participants and used that as evidence for the badge, talking about what their individual contribution to the research work was. And this was a project that spanned multiple years, a distributed team. It showed lots of interesting skills on those parts. And I, hopefully maybe that badge will become a valuable part of those people's learning journey. And I don't think the fact that, I am just one individual issuing a badge, I don't think that necessarily makes the badge, not valuable or not be able to be understood.
Agora uma para a Natacha e com o Nate junto. O que vocês acham que seria um primeiro passo para a gente? Quer dizer, aqui no Brasil a gente não tem trabalhado ainda com essa questão de badges. Nath, na tua visão, como é que a gente chegaria lá? Nate, na tua experiência, que passos que a gente precisa dar para a gente caminhar nessa direção? E aqui eu emendo uma pergunta para você, que você falou que vocês estão pensando em expandir internacionalmente, traduzir para outros idiomas, mas como é que a gente pode também aproveitar tudo isso que já foi desenvolvido na língua inglesa para a realidade de Brasil?
Eu acho que eu não tenho também na minha cabeça muito claro um caminho objetivo, mas eu acho que tem duas coisas bem importantes. Uma que eu acho que a gente construiu no Centro de Referências em Educação Integral, que é uma plataforma que a gente construiu lá no Aprendiz com vários parceiros, uma matriz de competências da educação integral. Quer dizer, qual é o conjunto de competências ligadas a cada uma das dimensões do desenvolvimento que deveriam estar no nosso foco num projeto educativo orientado pela perspectiva integral. Eu acho que a gente precisa trabalhar mais nessa perspectiva, como sociedade, assim, né, e como educadores. Entender melhor que conjunto de competências, porque muitas vezes esse lugar formação para o século XXI, competências para o século XXI, fica um pouco solto. Eu acho que a gente precisa começar a fazer uma discussão mais focada nisso. E acho que a gente tem uma discussão agora importante da base nacional, que hoje mesmo a gente teve um debate aqui, e que precisa levantar essa onda também. Quer dizer, a gente não pode, com esse debate da base nacional, ir para uma visão reducionista de um conjunto de conhecimentos dentro de disciplinas divididas por anos, e que faça essa nossa visão, que a gente está precisando alargar e ampliar, ficar ainda mais reduzida, né? Então, acho que o debate da base, como primeira etapa, como que a gente quiser entender, precisa ser um caminho de abertura para a gente pensar numa concepção de currículo atrelada a esse conjunto de competências. Então, eu acho que esse é o nosso caminho. E aí eu acho que uma plataforma como os badges ou qualquer outra vem como suporte, é ferramenta para. Muitas vezes a gente inverte, né? A gente vai para as ferramentas antes de construir a visão do que a gente quer, onde a gente quer chegar, né? Educação é projeto de país. Que formação a gente quer oferecer é a formação para esses sujeitos que a gente está, pensando que vão construir e estão construindo esse país, né? Então a gente precisa entender isso com essa profundidade, né? E aí sim ver que ferramenta melhor são os badges ou não. Eu acho que os badges são um estudo fundamental para a gente entendendo como é que a gente vai consolidando, inclusive com todo o recurso visual, a gente vai consolidando essas informações. Eu acho que é isso que eles estão estudando. Assim, quais são os elementos que eu tenho que observar, que tipo de informações eu posso levantar, que tipo de evidências eu preciso constituir. Isso tudo é um processo mesmo de pesquisa e de desenvolvimento. Acho que no Brasil a gente precisa ainda dar um passinho atrás e chegar num acordo de que matriz de competências é essa que a gente quer constituir, que está atrelada com essa visão de futuro e de educação que a gente tem para o país. Acho que essa é a primeira etapa. Lá no Centro de Referência de Educação Integral tem um exercício. Quem quiser ir lá dar uma olhada, ficar curioso, tem um exercício lá de uma matriz que a gente propõe, mas que ainda pode avançar muito.
One of the things that you mentioned there was that you've defined a skill framework that you already understand, and you've decided a set of competencies that you think represent some very interesting things about a integral education and the learner who goes through that. And I think that's a great place to start. As Jason Lang mentioned this morning on the Purple stage, coming to agreement on what competencies you want to recognize is one of the biggest challenges. And if you've already have a small community, even if it is not the entire Brazilian education community, if you start out with a small community that does agree on some values that they want to promote and some competencies that these are going to represent, that's a great start. And you can build a learning pathway, a cluster of these competencies around that, and you can then start to attach tools and experiment and provide the learning opportunities, assess whether students have met the criteria, and issue badges. And then when it gets to the point of you have some success to demonstrate and you want to have a wider conversation, within a larger community, then you can define, a parallel set of goals. And if not every single competency from this first set makes it onto the set that everyone can agree on, that is okay. And you can have these multiple overlapping sets where an individual can say, here's my learning journey in the integral education competency set, and then they can also step back one set larger and say, here's my learning journey as it applies to the Brazilian national curriculum for 13-year-olds. And I think that's a powerful model because it helps you get started quickly. As soon as you have a small community that knows what values it wants to recognize, you can start moving ahead with defining some badges and building the programs to deliver them.
Can I weigh in on this? I would just also like to add to it. I think it's fantastic that you guys have developed the skills and competencies. And I think being able to badge them and show student progress towards them is fantastic. I would add on, though, that instead of picking skills and competencies we think are important, that we would start there and then connect those to data to those outcomes. Because as soon as we connect them to outcomes, it's no longer about what we think is important. We can empirically evaluate what is more important in this large variety of activities we expect our students to learn.
Yeah, you can take an iterative approach to it. And then, Alice, to your question on the tools themselves, so I work for the Badge Alliance and also represent Concentric Sky, which develops tools like Badger that are work in the badge ecosystem. They're open source tools. And I was talking to our company president before I traveled to Brazil, and he said that if we can find partners in Brazil who do want to use badge tools, we can make sure that Portuguese is the first language that we provide a translation for. As we build out a broader translation framework to build badges in multiple tools, and then the badge standard itself from the Badge Alliance, we're going to internationalize that and be able to allow a translated version of a badge in one language that can easily be translated by a machine with its properties to a different language and displayed in a different language.
No exemplo que a Kim trouxe para a gente, lá do cálculo da área do retângulo, a gente percebe que na área de exatas, matemática, a gente tem um desafio de que os alunos entendam que aquilo ali é um processo de pensar e não apenas de calcular. Como é que a gente pode assegurar que o importante é o raciocínio e não chegar no resultado exato? E também como é que a gente pode também assegurar que num processo, por exemplo, a obtenção de um badge, o processo é importante e não necessariamente o coletar lá os N badges? Como é que eu posso trabalhar isso com os alunos para assegurar que ele não entre simplesmente nessa linha de não coletar, ou chegar no resultado e realmente não aprender no fim do dia?
Yeah, so there is, a long tradition of research in the educational community about what is it about different educational programs that is actually motivating the students, and how do you build an education program to motivate them to, get to the right outcomes. And with badges, there definitely is a risk that students will see the available badges out there and they will want to just collect them all, and they will, go and do the bare minimum of the requirements for each one, and then in the process not pay very much attention to their authentic learning. And so this is definitely something that is a real factor as you design a badge system, and you have to use the research that's out there and use the expertise of the teachers in the community to make sure that that you are building your badge system around incentives to engage in deeper learning. And some of this may involve using multiple different assessment techniques to make sure that even though if a student is really able to get to the minimum requirement on one type of badge, that on a different type of badge they have to demonstrate deeper understanding or a different type of learning. And so talk to the teachers and talk to the curricular specialists about what is working well with their education programs already, and make sure that you don't undermine it by the way that you implement the badge system. And I imagine, Kim, your research has a lot more to say on that subject.
I completely agree, Nate. I would say that when we developed that insight learning system, it was exactly your question we went after, which is, What are the skills students need to learn to actually get there? And so I think the really important first step is identifying this learning progression. And so there's been a lot of work in the United States, but right now the learning progressions tend to be driven by expert opinion, and they're laborious and they take a long time. And in a digital world, I worry that's not going to sustain us. And so one of the research projects that we are working on with Columbia University in New York is we are taking data from students' work in a digital course, and we are creating what we call semantic graphs. And what they are, in essence, is empirically based learning progressions. And so we're going to take data and say, how did students learn? What were the common paths that students went by? What were those process steps that students took to solve the problems? And then we're hoping at some point, and we just started this and we're finding great success at it right now, but the goal is to then be able to empirically generate these learning progressions, get about 90%, 80% of the way there, then bring in our experts and have them weigh in on where maybe we might be off a little on those learning progressions, and then empirically test them consistently until they stabilize and we actually believe the data and the expert opinion merge together on those. But I think your point is right. The other issue that we've struggled with is how do we make sure our teachers understand the learning progression? And I am a public school teacher. I was taught reading and mathematics for primary students, and I will tell you the underlying characteristics that we know from learning science that students need are very seldom taught in our teacher preparation programs. And so that's why we had built out that original teacher training module, but I think we need to work with our teacher preparation organizations and really begin to think about how to merge learning science into the way students learn. And let's get our students to also participate in that and get feedback from them to really help understand these learning progressions, and then challenge our students and then reward them for the process steps as well as the end goal.
Right, and one type of assessment that is fairly compatible with badges is to do formative assessment and to award badges based on assessment done as part of the process, not necessarily with the end result. And so that's part of what I say about mixing your different assessment methods and always paying attention to what the students say about how they want to proceed through the system. And if you find that students are putting too much weight on just getting the badges and not actually learning the material, that probably indicates some kind of design element of the system that you could change. There are so many interacting decisions that you make when you build a badge system. The first set being around what actual badges you want to issue, and how the capabilities of the software and tools you build up support those claims. And then the second set is all around what are the assessments, and these two parts have to fit together very well to support the motivational goals that you have for the system and what activity you want to promote.
Tem uma aqui, Nate, bem específica para a gente entender como é que está sendo o uso de badges no mercado. É do Valdir, do Singularidades. Ele está perguntando o seguinte: as universidades aderiram ao sistema? Se sim, qual a função e a utilização dos Open Badges para os profissionais de recursos humanos?
So far, we are still in early days in the badges ecosystem, and so one of the initial focuses as the Mozilla Foundation built out the technology was to make it very easy to issue badges, and that resulted maybe in a market imbalance with too much supply of badges and not really much demand. And when the Badge Alliance was formed, in early 2014, one of the early goals was to help try and fix that imbalance and to support the demand side of the market. And we have had a little bit of success at this. The story of open badges is very strong. The message about having open credentials that are verifiable is a very good story and is very attractive to people. But organizations, whether they are universities or employers, are very wary of making promises about what credentials they are going to accept and what they are going to provide in exchange for those credentials. And so I think the work that we're doing this year with learning pathways and endorsement as the main new technical focuses of the Badge Alliance will really aim to tell the story about a single badge as here's a badge that corresponds to values that you already hold, and it has cool features like being able to be verified to correspond to an individual student. And I think these new capabilities, if you can say that this badge is endorsed by a foundation that you trust, then that helps make it a lot easier to make the decision to accept the badge into your program and to convert it back into some kind of real-world value, whether that is, advanced college credit or whether it just helps make the decision easier to take someone on for a job or an internship. So we've not solved the problem yet, but I think we're making really good strides, and there's lots of different types of organizations that can help that process out by lending their understanding of the different badges that are in the ecosystem through the technical definition of learning pathways and supporting the badge programs that you like through endorsement. To build a real network of trust so that those universities and employers eventually recognize that I am in a network of trust, and I already do have reasons to value the credentials that someone is showing me.
E acho que a última pergunta, se o governo pode, deve se envolver com a emissão e validação de badges. E como é que tem sido isso na experiência, americana de vocês?
So there's a very interesting experience from the state of Oregon, and then I'll also talk about the Cities of Learning program a little bit. And you'll note that neither of these are the United States government at the federal level. We've had a lot of interesting successes with smaller governments that are more flexible. And so, for example, in the Cities of Learning, in all the cities I talked about, from Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Dallas this year, their mayor's offices are deeply involved in supporting the program, building the infrastructure for different community partners to talk to each other, and then helping out decide that open badges will be the technology that allows them to all talk together and deliver credentials that those students can all make part of a single learning journey. And so that's very interesting. And in the state of Oregon, we've had some very interesting conversations with government officials around all the different government contracts that are available for products that include credentials. And so there are many different licensing programs for professionals, as well as skills development programs to help people get into the workforce. And state governments are, especially in the United States, are deeply involved in those programs. And I think you would find in Brazil that you have governments at different levels that are very interested in making sure that their workforce has the skills that are needed. This plays on the big sort of top line number of what is the unemployment figure, and markets often depend on that figure, and so it is a very visible sign of how healthy an economy is. And so if you can make the case to a government that if you can help your population better express what skills they have and help the employers better understand the skills that are out there in the population, you'll be able to connect those two parties and be able to reduce the unemployment rate and bring more people into jobs that are better fitting for them, and then also get them into the training programs to help enhance the sort of gaps in their skills, the parts of the skill framework that a city might support that they haven't finished yet. And then you can find, you might find like grant programs for, programs specifically to support skills that are found to be lacking in a population. And governments are definitely an important stakeholder in that process.
Bom, e daí a pergunta final é se a gente pode fazer um badge do Transformar 2015 para todo mundo que assistiu esse nosso painel, para já começar na coleção. Mas, enfim, queria agradecer Kim, Nate e a Natacha e todos vocês que estiveram aqui com a gente e pedir uma salva de palmas para todos.